Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Dick Fleming. I was a member of First Force Recon during the Vietnam War, and I wrote about my experiences in the military in a book called Chasing Charlie, which is available on Amazon. You might want to read it. You might find it interesting. I also have a website called firstforcerecon.com that has additional resources about the recon community in general, photographs that I took or other people have sent to me over the years. So you might also find that interesting. This video is a continuation of the story I began in a video that I made a little while ago about being wounded. And this story continues the tale. When I left off the last video, our team was on a hill. I had been wounded, and they were holding up a strobe light to guide Spooky, a C-47 with a Gatling gun on it. It's also known as Puff the Magic Dragon, as it circled around our position all night long. Probably we were attacked at night, and it was probably 3 in the morning when we finally made it up to that hillside. And so for about 3 hours, Puff the Magic Dragon, or Spooky, circled around our position, keeping any enemy at bay. They couldn't go through that hail of gunfire that was thrown by that C-47. It was really that Gatling gun. When it fired bursts that sounded like bees. It didn't sound like bam, 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 bam. It was like zzz, zzz, and you'd see the tracers coming down from that plane as it circled above us, a twin-engined C-47. It was one hell of a weapon. And so in the morning, as soon as dawn broke, they could get the medevac helicopter in to extract us and take me back into the hospital area at Cam Rahn Bay. And so they dragged me onto the helicopter and they laid me down. I was pretty out of it at the time. They had given me morphine for the pain in my leg, and I was probably in shock as well. And the first thing they did after there was a medic on board, and he laid me down, and he started to rip the bandages off that the other men had put on to stop the bleeding. And that really hurt. And I yelled and told him, stop, stop. And he did stop. And we continued on down to Cam Rahn Bay, the hospital area, which was on the coast of Vietnam. And they had the hospital itself was a series of Quonset huts and buildings, all painted white. They had red crosses on top of the roof. We could see that as the helicopter came down. And so as soon as it hit the landing zone, a group of Marines, medics came out, and they loaded me onto a gurney and wheeled me away. And the helicopter took the rest of the team back to our base post. Well, as I was laying there on the gurney being wheeled into the emergency room, as soon as we went through the doors there, when I looked up, I could see painted on the ceiling, it said in black letters, "Through these portals are the finest warriors in the world. Go the finest warriors in the world." You can only see that if you're on a stretcher being taken in. Only way you could read it. Well, it's a dubious distinction, to say the least. Well, they brought me into the emergency room, and they immediately cut off my jungle fatigues, and I had camouflage paint all over my face and arms, and they wiped that off with alcohol. I must have been a sight to see. And I was laying there on that gurney, completely naked, in an air-conditioned room for the first time in 6 months. And I started to shake uncontrollably. The cold and the shock, you know, I was shaking. But they brought an X-ray unit and took some pictures of my leg. And the doctor came in and said he wanted to do a spinal tap. Make sure that I hadn't been hit in the head, or, you know, the spinal fluid would indicate that a more serious injury had occurred than just in my leg. So they took the X-ray. After taking the X-ray, he came in with a needle. To me, it looked about this long and this thick. Probably wasn't. But they had me lie up, sit up, and bend over. And so the vertebrae in my back were extended. And he injected that needle into the back of my back, in between the vertebrae. And as soon as he did that, it was a warm sensation, but I lost all feeling in my legs. And I panicked for a moment. I said, "Doc, I can't feel my legs, I'm paralyzed." And he said, "It'll wear off, it'll wear off. It'll probably wear off." I said to myself, probably wear off. Probably wear off. Well, that's what he said. And with that, the door opened behind me, and they wheeled in another Marine. He was hurt bad, and he was crying out for his mother. A very high voice, "Mama, Mama." Well, they wheeled him right into the operating room, and there was blood on the floor, and the medic got a mop and a pail and mopped up the blood that was on the floor, and they wheeled me into another operating room. And the next thing I remember was being wakened by someone moaning in the other room, in the room. I said to myself, you know, Jesus, can they shut that bastard up, you know? Moaning there. Well, the nurse came over to me and said, keep it down, keep it down. And I realized that I was the one moaning. Well, couldn't help it. I didn't know that I was doing it. But in the morning, I was feeling a little bit better, and she came over to me again before she left her ship, and she goes, how are you doing? And I sat up. I was going to tell her I was doing fine, but instead I vomited all over the bed. Just couldn't help it. I guess it was the narcotics they'd given me to put me out. But I was so embarrassed. I still remember the feeling of being so embarrassed all over those nice white sheets that I had for the first time in months and months. Well, the doctor came in on his rounds, and the surgeon who had operated on me had a saucer with half a dozen pieces of metal on it that he'd taken out of my leg. And he said that he had still left one piece. He couldn't get it. It was behind my kneecap. And he said it would do more damage if he had gone in there and taken that out. And I said, well, what's going to happen with it? And he said, well, you're just going to have to live with it. Well, it's a nice thing to say. You try living with it. But that's what he told me. And he must have done a good job in general, because after a few days I started to feel better. I was, up to that point, I was in a wheelchair, and but then I got on to crutches, and they had physical therapy every day, a machine where I was raising my leg and getting physical therapy, and I was doing pretty well. I think I asked the doctor after about a week, how long do you think I'll be in the hospital? And he said, oh, at least 2 or 3 more weeks. And at that point, I wanted to get back to my unit. I was really trying to do the best I could to recover. The one thing that was probably worse for me than anything else was that they had my leg in a brace, with with a weight being attached to it on a pulley, and it would apply a pressure at night against my knee. And after a while, that really began to ache and hurt, and I couldn't sleep, and I couldn't even turn over or anything like that because it was something like pulling on your leg all the time. And foolishly, I thought it was smart at the time. I put a little knot in the line so that the knot would take the pressure of that weight. It was a stupid thing to do, but that's what I did. Now, if I had been smart in general, I would have milked that wound for every hour I could have gotten away with it. I could have malingered a little bit longer and stayed in the hospital there for a month or so, maybe longer. And when I got back, I probably could have used that wound as an excuse to maybe get a good safe job back in the rear doing something like office work, become a pogue. But I was worried about my team. I really felt that I was letting them down by being in the hospital. And if anything had happened to them, that I'd be responsible. I was worried, who was gonna take care of them if I wasn't there? Who was gonna look out for them? Well, the time went on, and I got more and more worried about them. And I was determined to get back to them as soon as I could. And I really worked hard at the rehabilitation. One day, coming back from the mess hall, I saw on the wall a poster that said, "Come and join us for sun and fun." They had a picture of people swimming and on the beach, that they had Xeroxed on the poster. And they said that they were going to be leaving on Saturday. That was about 4 days away. And to join in the parking lot, and the van would take you down to the beach. Well, that sounded great to me. But I went up to one of the nurses who was at the desk there. She was new to me. I hadn't seen her before. And I said, "Nurse, I'd like to go to that picnic on the beach on Saturday." And she looked at me and she pointed to the chevrons on her blouse, and she goes, "Captain to you, Marine." I said, "Oh, okay, sir. I'd like to go to that picnic on the beach." And she looked at me. I had my crutches, and she goes, "You're not ambulatory. You're not going anywhere." Well, I went back to my bunk, and tried to think of what I would be doing, and I decided that I was going to try to go anyway. So when Saturday arrived, I got out there by the parking lot, and I joined some other men who were being loaded onto a van. They had a lot of them were on wheelchairs. They were in much worse shape than me. And they were all going to the beach. And so we got down there, and there was a big pavilion, and they had steaks on a grill that they were grilling, and they had beer for us. But there was only a handful of us. And if you looked out on the beach, there were lots of doctors and nurses and medics. They were playing volleyball. They were on the beach. They were in the water. They were having a great time. And I realized that that party was really for them, not necessarily for us, the patients. But we were happy. We sat under the pavilion. We ate our steaks and drank our beer, and I was feeling no pain when I got back. And I was basically alone there in that Kwanzaa hut. There was only one Arvin next to me in the bed, and he had stepped on a punji stick, and it had gotten infected, and he was on antibiotics, all these tubes of antibiotics. They were trying to stop that infection from spreading. The VC used to dip those punji sticks in fecal matter, and You know, you got even scratched by those, and that infection would take hold. And unfortunately, that's what happened with this guy. He had a really bad infection. I used to talk to him all the time, and my pidgin Vietnamese and his pidgin English. He was always studying a big fat book on mathematics. He was hoping to become a teacher, and you know, we got along fine. But shortly before I left, they took him away, and I understand that they had to operate on his foot and amputate it. The infection couldn't be stopped in any other way, and he could have gotten gangrene, and that would have been it for him. So the next morning, I saw the nurse that had told me I couldn't go to the party, and apparently she had found out that I had gone. And she came up to me and she goes, "I ordered you not to go on that picnic." And I didn't know exactly what to say, but I didn't want to annoy her. I said, I thought it was a suggestion. I thought it was a suggestion. I didn't realize it was an order, sir, madam. I didn't realize it was an order. She goes, "Well, I'll give you a suggestion. I suggest you get your stuff together and get ready to get out of here. If you're well enough to go to a party on the beach, you're well enough to go back to your unit." Well, actually, that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was working toward. I wanted to get back there. And so after a day, I got orders. They gave me a new set of camouflage utilities. And by that time, I was walking fairly well. I had a cane, but I was walking very well. It's amazing how quickly your body, when you're young, can rejuvenate itself. So I was flown back to my base camp, and I walked into my hooch, and everybody was so glad to see me. "Oh, Rick, we're so glad to have you back. How are you doing?" I said, "I'm fine. How are you guys doing? Did you go out on many patrols?" You know, I figured that they had gone out. Been nearly a month. They've gone out on probably 2 patrols, and you know, wanted to hear what was going on. And they said, No, we didn't go out at all. With you at the hospital, and our lieutenant was still out of commission. He goes, a lot of guys went to R&R, and Bowman took your place at scuba school at Cam Rahn Bay, at Subic Bay. We never went out again after you got hit. I said, "Oh, shit." I was hoping at least to get out of a few patrols. But again, if I would have used my head, for my own benefit, I could have milked that wound and gotten out of the bush even. But it wasn't me at the time. I was a bush marine. I wanted to do my duty, and I wanted to protect my friends. Strange attitude. But that was the way it was in Vietnam, at least for me. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thank you.